So it's in?
Yeah.
And it's running, as we know.
She's moving under her own power.
We've heard it running, you've driven it.
She drives, so I've got the lights working now, so I'm pretty much just focusing on bodywork, and that's all that's really stopping it being MOT'd and road legal.
So how did you get it into there, basically?
It come through the passenger side door.
So it just came straight through the door?
Well, it didn't just walk through, it was pretty damn high.
A bit rude, it could have done.
Yeah, no. What I had to do, I had to lift it up on the engine hoist and get it in as far as I can, and sit the sump on the passenger side arch there, as you can see if you point your camera, and then lower the hoist, the top of the hoist down, so all the weight was on the passenger arch, because I couldn't get the hoist, the top of the hoist, under the door, because the Cummins is, with it being so tall, and then trying to get the hoist under, and I had it as tight as I could to the engine. It was just, so I just lowered it down that little bit, got the hoist under, lifted it back up, and then when it come to put it in, also the hoist didn't have enough reach, so I had to sort of get it in, push the bottom in, lower it down, get it onto one mount on that side, and then just let it drop over the other side onto the other mount. So that was quite, yeah, it was quite scary.
So why did you put it in the way you put it in?
Well, the only reason I put it in through the side door is, well, that is one way you can do it, but the main reason, I didn't have a ramp at the time, so I had no way. Otherwise I would have got the LT on the ramp, taken the front axle off, and then lifted the whole LT up, put the engine under on a trolley or something like that, and then dropped it down onto it, and it would have, you know, popped up through.
So what you're saying is that you can do it another way, because there's not a lot of people that are following you and want to do your sort of stuff. Like you won't have a ramp. You did this outside.
The only reason I did it that way is because I didn't have a ramp. Otherwise, anybody that's got a ramp, if you want to put a Cummins in an LT, probably do it. Put it from underneath, it'd be a damn sight easier.
So what did you actually use to put it in?
I used an engine hoist. You can, just buy them off eBay, Amazon, anywhere like that.
So just a manual engine hoist?
I think I used a 2-ton engine hoist for this, because it's, well, even a 1-ton should manage it, it should be fine, but I was a bit, because it's like half a ton of engine, so I used a 2-ton and that was fine.
So where do you, what struggles do you have when you put it in? Where do you put the engine mounts? What did you have to change?
It's quite funny, the chassis width of the LT is actually very similar. I think there's half an inch in it between the one on the DAF. So the engine mounts were quite simple to put in. All I did was, they have 4 bolt holes at the front that they're bolt in. So what I did was drilled the holes through because the DAF has like a U-shaped chassis where the engine mounts go up and bolt through, but the LT has box section chassis. So I drilled straight through the box section, put some metal tubing in, welded round, and then put the mounts on and bolted, so it, instead of squishing the chassis leg when I tightened it up, it was putting all the pressure on the pipe, but it's still solid. And then the back, it was slightly different, and I welded them in.
Because your back has been cut out for a camper van, isn't it? That's what it.
Yeah.
That's why that's like that at the moment.
Yeah, that
you've had to put that plate on.
Yeah. People say, "Oh, did you put the engine through there?" But no, that wasn't. But saying that, you possibly could, yeah. But no.
But that was cut out when you put the engine.
Yeah, that
But
was
did you not
cut
find
out.
that easy going through the back? It was definitely easier going through the side door.
Because it was, I'd have had to have got the engine hoist in between the chassis leg. The engine hoist in between the chassis legs there, and the engine. So I'd have had to have done one lift with the engine into the chassis back there, and then lift it over into its current position.
And for anybody that's not been following this is a Volkswagen LT.
A Volkswagen LT with
what model?
It's a LT40.
It's an LT40.
Yeah.
Will this the cabs on them all the same? Will this go into a 35?
Yeah,
50?
the cabs are all the same. It's purely from 28 to 50, 55 or whatever. They go up, and that's purely to say what weight it can carry. And I think the only difference is the springs, because 35s have coil springs either side, and then once you go up to the 40 and bigger, they have leaf springs on the front. Yeah, so that's it.
So did the gearbox fit in as well, and did you have to customise the chassis, and is that an LT gearbox or a DAF gearbox?
So the engine and gearbox are both out of the Leyland DAF. It works quite well because there's only 4 mounts, and there's 2 on the front of the engine and then 2 on the gearbox. So when the gearbox and engine is coupled together, it's all one unit, and it's got 4 mounts. So the front engine mounts, as I said, I drilled the holes, put the piping in and bolted it through the piping, and the back I actually welded in place. It just worked a bit better with the type of bracket, and then they just, the fronts are like a V, so the engine sits in on 2 rubbers, just rubber blocks, and the back are just little lugs basically with holes in that the gearbox just sits on top, and you just bolt straight through. So it's simple as anything for the mountings. It was really easy, just a couple of hours work if that to get them welded, measured up and welded into place.
The original Leyland DAF gearbox that you fitted in,
yeah.
So then you go on to the prop shaft.
Yeah, the prop shaft is the Leyland DAF prop shaft. When the Leyland DAF this come out of, I got the I think it was the longest one they did, so I had like 3 sections of prop shaft to go at, and I ended up taking that to a company called Driveline in Morecambe, and I took the 3 sections of prop shaft, and we worked out, we measured it, or I measured it and took them the measurements where I wanted everything, and then they worked out between the 3 sections and the LT one what they was going to do, and they ended up actually getting, I think, they used the DAF section first of all, the first 2 sections of the DAF, and then they got a flange off a Bedford. I don't know what type, he just said it was off a Bedford, and that goes straight onto the Volkswagen diff. So yeah.
And you never had any problems, because you have had some people saying it just shred the diff or something, didn't you?
Some people say it'll just destroy the diff. On this particular diff, it can carry 7.5 tonne. So that's what it's.
So that diff could be used with a larger engine.
Yeah, that diff is actually the Volkswagen LTs go up to LT55, which I think is 7.5 tonne. Or maybe even 8, the train weight, so it can cope with an engine pulling, 8 tonne at least, which I've never had any problems, and quite a lot of people say to me that they are pretty much indestructible diffs, and then you get the other way that people say, it'll just smash it straight away, but
it hasn't.
It hasn't, and if worse comes to worse, I'll just have to work out.
That's something that if it does, you'll deal with it.
It's not the end of the world, is it? If it chooses a diff, it chooses a diff.
Did you have to move the radiator?
The radiator is off the DAF as well. It fits in quite reasonably well. There was 2 mountings again. I just welded them onto the chassis legs, and then they have 4 bolt holes either side. There's 4 30mm bolts. They go into the bottom of the radiator, and then just 2 little bars coming off at the top, which are just to stabilise it. And then the piping is just the exact same piping. I haven't shortened it, cut it or anything, or lengthened it. It's the same piping off the DAF. And and that's keeping all the radiator, the whole unit, engine, radiator, gearbox, whatever, as it's come out the DAF is exactly the same.
Have you had to change the pedals?
Yeah, the pedals, there's a hydraulic clutch, so it's an air assist clutch as well, so hydraulic onto an air chamber, which then moves the clutch. So I've used the actual DAF, I got the DAF pedal box, I've used the DAF clutch side of it, and I actually cut between the two and welded both the Volkswagen LT brake pedal and the DAF clutch pedal together on the same unit. It's all through the same pin, so it pivots at the same point and everything. There's a little bit of customization with a DAF pedal that you have to cut it slightly just to angle it better, and then that's just a pipe that runs to hydraulic pipe. You just bleed that up and that runs to the back of a gearbox, which then goes onto an air chamber, and then the air power, which that's another thing that I've had to do. I've had to put the air tanks off a DAF.
So you've put the DAF brakes on?
No, not the brakes.
Right.
Just the clutch.
Right.
Because the DAF has air brakes and air clutch, but I didn't need the air brakes, so I just needed the air clutch though, because it's quite a big engine. It's a hard clutch. If you didn't have it, it'd be extremely hard. But now it's as easy as anything. It's actually easier than, it's easier than the original LT clutch. So this is the cover now. It would have, the top of it here, I think, would have been about there. It's usually just flush with the bottom of the seat, so you can see I've got the seat in now. So the top of the seat is about here. So it would be, the top of the cover will be roughly about here, which, it's a little bit more, but saying that, actual driving, it makes no difference because it's only the centre. So you can't have, well, you possibly could, but I don't think you'd have two seats in on the passenger side. You just have, single seats either side. So this is the one for the DAF clutch. So air assist clutch there, and then these two are for the air brakes. But I wanted to keep these because I can put if it's running, I'll be able to power air tools off. I've got a little adapter that goes in the pipe, so if I get a flat tyre or anything and I've got a tyre gauge with me, I can just blow my tyre up or whatever, and in case I do anything else, I've got extra air, pretty much, just extra storage, and I just think it looks better as well. She's got some air tanks, so yeah, that's about it. And yeah, you can see the DAF prop there. All I've done there is it's a two-piece prop, just comes straight off the DAF flange there, and then comes to a hanger in the centre, which is also off the DAF.
Can we get a picture of that?
Yeah, the hanger is just behind there, at the top. Yeah, so it's just there. It's like a little U-shaped thing that just bolts up. Right. Just holds the prop up. Then this is this is a slider here. So that gives, when the diff's going up and down, it just goes in and out slightly. Just gives it a little bit of movement, in case anything happens. This will just slide out of here a little bit. Yeah, and then back here. Slightly. It just goes from the DAF here, so you can see where he's welded it here. That's still the DAF flat. Oh no, I think that was that's the whole Bedford flange. So also shortening it, we had to weld it at some point, so then he's just put the DAF flange on there, and then not the DAF flange, sorry, the Bedford flange, and then that goes on to the LT diff, and then that's just all standard pretty much. Brakes are standard at the moment.
So are you glad you did it?
Yes, I'm over the moon. I've done it. yeah, she's just brill. It'd be, yeah, a really usable wagon, plenty of power, and she's still completely standard. Yeah, so there's even modifications I can do, but we won't say whether I'll do them or not. Well, I guess it's enough of a modification anyway, isn't it?
I think you've got enough power there, haven't you?
Yeah, what is the, it's 2.4 litre standard, so 5.9 is quite a big increase, isn't it?
Yeah. So, last and final question, can we hear a run?
Yes. Yeah.